and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The U.S. military has carried out airstrikes against Iran-backed militia in Iraq and Syria. In a statement, the Pentagon says it targeted operational and weapons storage facilities. It says President Joe Biden authorized the strikes in response to drone attacks on U.S. personnel and facilities in Iraq. Meanwhile, Syrian state media says a child was killed and 3 civilians injured in the air raid. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, the Taliban claim to have captured HOSHAMAN district of Paktika province. In a tweet, spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the fighters killed many government troops and arrested 2. Meanwhile, the Badakhshan province governor says Kabul repelled Taliban attacks in Jurm, Bahrak, Taghab and Tashkent districts. The Arab coalition says it has intercepted 6 armed drones and 4 ballistic missiles launched by the Houthis towards Saudi Arabia. Saudi state media quoted the coalition as saying it shot down the projectiles on Khamis city within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Houthi spokesperson Yahya Sari claims the group targeted sensitive military sites in Najran, Abha and Khamis Mushat. Brazil has reported more than 700 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 33,000 infections. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 24 fatalities and a little over 900 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.9 million lives and has infected over 181 million people. And in football, Ecuador and Peru have advanced into the quarterfinals of Copa America. Ecuador held Brazil to a 1-1 draw in Guyana, while Peru beat Venezuela 1-0 to seal their place in the last 8. The quarterfinal matchups will be decided today after the last round of Group A fixtures. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The U.S. military has carried out airstrike against Iran-backed militia in Iraq and Syria. In a statement, a Pentagon spokesperson said it targeted operational and weapons storage facilities. John Kirby said President Joe Biden authorized the strikes in response to drone attacks on U.S. personnel and facilities in Iraq. He did not say whether anyone was killed or injured. But the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 5 fighters were killed and several others wounded. Meanwhile, Syrian state media says a child was killed and 3 civilians injured in the air raid. This is the second time Biden has ordered retaliatory attacks against armed groups since taking office. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, the Taliban claim to have captured the HOSHAMAN district of Paktika province. In a tweet, spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the fighters killed many government troops and arrested 2. He also rejected U.S. allegations that the Taliban are sabotaging civilian infrastructure and abducting civilians in Faryab province. The spokesperson said the group has to protect the country as foreign forces have been killing Afghans for 20 years. He said Washington is blaming the Taliban instead of stopping Afghan forces from killing own people. This came after the U.S. charged the affairs to Kabul accused the group of extremism and disregard of human rights. Meanwhile, Kabul says it has killed about 60 fighters during operations in 4 provinces. The Arab coalition fighting in Yemen says it has shot down 6 armed Houthi drones and 4 ballistic missiles within the past 48 hours. Saudi state media quoted the coalition as saying it shot down the projectiles on Khamis city. However, Houthi spokesperson Yahya Sari claims the group targeted sensitive military sites in Najran, Abha and Khamis Mushat. Meanwhile, fighting between Yemen's warring parties in the gas-rich Marib region has intensified in recent days. Saudi media quoted Yemeni army officials as saying that dozens of Houthi fighters have been killed overnight in air raids. They also claim to capture several areas west of Al-Khanjar military base. This comes as Yemen's president Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi traveled to the US shortly after a meeting with senior government officials in Riyadh. At least 7 people have been killed and over 70 others injured in an explosion in Bangladesh capital city of Dhaka. Police said the blast occurred on the ground floor of a 3-story building on a busy street, Moghbazar area. They added 7 nearby buildings and 3 buses were also damaged in the explosion. The cause of the blast was not immediately known. In Somalia, at least 30 people have been killed in an Al-Shabaab attack in the semi-autonomous state of Galmudug. A military official says the Al-Qaeda-linked insurgent used car bombs to target the military base in Wazil town. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel needs to engage with Palestine for peace in the region. It comes as Blinken met Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid in Rome. Blinken said Washington supports Tel Aviv's normalization accords, but it is not a substitute for peace. The U.S. Secretary of State added that he would be raising the issue of humanitarian assistance into Gaza. Earlier this month, Blinken and Lapid discussed the need to improve Israeli-Palestinian ties in practical ways after the 11-day bombardment on Gaza. Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh arrived in Lebanon as part of an Arab tour to rally support for the Palestinian cause. In a press briefing in Beirut, Haniyeh said the visit aims to advocate for the rights of Palestinians. He said Palestinians have a right to return and rejected any notion of another homeland. The Hamas leader said his meetings will focus on political developments after the Gaza ceasefire last month. Hamas seeks to revive support against the Israeli occupation during the tour that included Egypt, Morocco, and Mauritania. Brazil has reported more than 700 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 33,000 infections. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.9 million lives and has infected over 181 million people. Details in the following report. Despite vaccination campaigns, the COVID-19 pandemic is raging in countries that have detected the highly infectious Delta variant. India has recorded more than 396,000 deaths, but health experts and statisticians say this vastly undercounts the actual toll. Thousands of migrant workers are fleeing Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, ahead of a new tough coronavirus lockdown. In Oceania, the Delta outbreak is proving to be the Achilles heels for New Zealand and Australia. Wellington is expected to exclude Australia's New South Wales from its quarantine-free travel bubble as cases mount. Outbreaks are emerging across Australia in a new phase of the pandemic due to the Indian strain.
Now, whilst the numbers today are less than the numbers yesterday, we have to be prepared for the numbers to bounce around, and we also have to be prepared for the numbers to go up considerably, because as experience shows with this strain, we are seeing almost 100% of transmission within households, and we're seeing a very high rate of transmissibility.
In Europe, Germany is likely to ban British travellers from the European Union regardless of their vaccination status. Meanwhile, Luxembourg Prime Minister Xavier Bettel has tested positive for coronavirus and will spend 10 days in isolation. Over in South Africa, the government has reimposed restrictions for 2 weeks to combat a surge in the Delta variant.
As I address you this evening, the situation has gotten worse. Along with many other countries on our continent, Africa, South Africa is seeing a massive resurgence of infections.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has authorized the Pfizer vaccine for children aged 12 to 18. Pakistan has reported another 20 coronavirus deaths, the lowest tally in a single day since the third wave began. The health ministry says the virus infected 914 people in the past 24 hours. Officials say the tally of fatalities has surged to 22,231. There are over 32,000 active cases in Pakistan and nearly 2,000 are critical. The virus has infected over 955,000 people since the pandemic began. More than 901,000 have recovered. A Pakistan army soldier has been martyred in a bomb blast in southwestern Balochistan province. The army's media wing says militants used an improvised explosive device to target an FCE vehicle in Kach district. In a statement, ISPR said such cowardly acts cannot sabotage hard-earned peace in the province. It said security forces are determined to neutralize nefarious designs of enemies at any cost. Moscow has accused the European Union of mimicking U.S. policy towards Russia. In an article, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the bloc wishes to normalize ties right after the U.S.-Russia summit. He said Brussels is following in the footsteps of Big Brother Washington. But Lavrov said it is yet to be determined if the fruits of the Geneva summit materialize. He added that the West does not like Russia standing up for states that have become victims of its adventures. Lavrov said Moscow is accused of aggressive policies when it counters ultra-radical and neo-Nazi tendencies of the West. Myanmar's military says the country intends to expand its cooperation with Russia. In an interview, the coup leader said Naypyidaw needs to enhance its defense capabilities due to the interest of major powers. Min Aung Hlaing said he discussed air defense with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu in Moscow last week. Hlaing said Myanmar's military has become one of the strongest in the region thanks to Russia. Whereas lawyers in Myanmar say the situation is becoming worse amid mounting harassment and arrest. The military has detained at least 5 lawyers for defending politicians and activists in the past month. Meanwhile, the nationwide anti-coup protests continue despite the killing of over 880 civilians. South Korea says it plans to take part in a large-scale naval exercise by the U.S. and Australia next month. The Talisman Sabre exercise is the largest bilateral training activity between Washington and Canberra. The Korean Defense Ministry said it will send a 4,400-ton class destroyer to the drill in Australian waters. Britain, Canada, New Zealand and Japan will also join this year's exercise. Meanwhile, Australia's Defense Ministry says the drills will be scaled back due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Around 17,000 personnel are set to take part in the exercise, about half the number in 2019. A group of fighters from Nigeria's Boko Haram has promised allegiance to ISIS in western Nigeria. This fuels fears that ISWAP is making gains in the region after the death of Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau. A video released by the ISIS media wing showed several hundred armed men gathering in the bush. A Boko Haram fighter in Hausa said the groups will unite to fight and threaten unprecedented outcomes. The groups have engaged in a violent rivalry for years. If ISWAP absorbs Boko Haram fighters, it could focus attention on attacking the Nigerian military. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the U.S. state of Florida, hope is fading for the 152 still missing in the building collapse that has so far claimed 9 lives. No one has been pulled alive from the debris since Thursday. Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava said 1 person died in the hospital, while 8 bodies were recovered from the rubble. At a press conference, Levine Cava said 6 to 8 squads of rescuers, backed by 2 huge cranes, are continuing the search tirelessly. Officials say 130 people have been accounted for so far. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says debris with forensic value will be inspected to help determine the cause of the collapse. China has marked the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party. Dazzling light shows were held in the northeastern city of Dalian and the eastern city of Hangzhou. In Dalian, major landmarks and historical sites were lit up, aiming to show the development of the port city. In Hangzhou, buildings on both sides of the Qiantang River were illuminated at night. The light shows displayed historical moments for the party and the country's progress against poverty. Luminous drones were a highlight of the show. A hotel for pets, the first of its kind, has opened in the West Bank. Located in the town of Birzeit, the Pet Palace offers accommodation, grooming and pet supplies. More in this report.
George Gaddis has fulfilled his dream by opening a hotel for pets in the West Bank. He says there is a need for such a service as it offers pet owners a solution when they travel.
I've raised dogs and pets throughout all of my life. I've had most types of pets and I always had trouble finding a place to keep my dogs when I travel, or if I want to bathe them, take them to play, groom them, or take them anywhere. There is no place in this country that provides these services. I've traveled a lot and saw many similar places abroad, and that is how I got the idea.
Although the project was seen as silly by Gaddis' family and friends, but he was not dissuaded and was convinced that the hotel will fill in a much-needed service gap.
It is a great adventure. When I first informed my family and friends that I intend to open a hotel for dogs, they made fun of me and would tell me that this is silly. But honestly, I was surprised. Well, not very surprised, since I expected it. But those around me were surprised by the excellent turnout to the hotel since it was established.
The Pet Palace only serves a limited portion of the Palestinian pet owners, as its services are seen as instrumental.
This is a very important, convenient and nice project that provides a safe place for pets, especially that a lot of people have to run errands and need a place to put the dog or want to travel.
Gaddis says he is satisfied with the turnout of the hotel and aspires to extend the project to care for stray dogs.
A historic heat wave has blistered the northwest U.S. and Canada with record temperatures. Temperatures soared to an all-time high of nearly 44.5 degrees Celsius in Oregon's largest city, Portland. The National Weather Service says the heat wave is likely to be one of the most extreme and prolonged in the region's history. It has already placed all of Washington and Oregon under an excessive heat warning. Meanwhile, in Western Canada, temperatures soaring to new highs have triggered heat warnings in Arctic territories. Environment Canada has issued alerts for British Columbia, Alberta, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. Britain and Singapore will start talks on a digital trade agreement on Monday. It could remove trade barriers to digital technology. British Trade Minister Liz Truss says a deal with Singapore will keep London at the forefront of the technological revolution. In a statement, she said the agreement will ensure Britain leads the way in fintech and cyber security. Truss added the UK will be the first European state to negotiate a digital economy agreement. The talks are a part of London's post-Brexit attempts to become a global tech powerhouse. Most stocks in the Asia-Pacific are trading slightly lower. Investors are monitoring the threat posed to economic recovery by the Indian Delta variant. Mainland Chinese shares, Seoul's Kospi and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index have edged down marginally. Japan's Nikkei 225 and the ASX 200 in Australia are trading more or less flat. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.